In this video, I'm going to talk about flow. So flow refers to the visual continuity and connectedness of lines, shapes, or forms within a composition. So in this case, we're talking about the figure here. So it's about creating a sense of movement and rhythm that guides the viewer's eye smoothly throughout the artwork. And this is also guided and helped by the lines of action that I talked about. We'll jump into how the general flow of the body follows those lines of action to create a flow around the body. So consider that the figure's body parts work together. The arms, legs, torso, and head should flow as a cohesive whole, not as separate objects acting independently. This is very important. A very big mistake that I tend to see with a lot of students, especially when they're studying anatomy or when they're studying construction and they're not done gestures before. They tend to kind of separate the limbs into its own sort of like thing that is doing its own thing. So you want to make sure that everything kind of flows together. So the general flow that we're aiming for, kind of imagine like a river, right? Or water flowing seamlessly through the image. So this is generally the kind of flow that we're aiming for, is this kind of overlapping that we're seeing in the lines like that. And we can change the distances as well. We can have a short line, a longer line, a medium line, a line that's curving around. As long as we have these kind of overlapping lines that occurs like that, we can create some nice flow around the image. If the lines cross into each other like you're seeing here, it's as if that there's a crash in that flow. So imagine how water would kind of crash into one another and then kind of filter down and then curve in and then crash again. And this kind of creates a visual disruption in the overall flow. Now, this doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. This can be a desired effect depending on how you do it. It's just if you aren't aware of either of these two differences, you might create an undesired effect. So when we're looking at the body, that's essentially what we're aiming for, is that overall through the figure, it has this kind of like general flow that kind of flows into one another. You have an overlap into the deltoid. Here you have a part of the underside of the arm, the bicep essentially. You can see how this leads into one area and then towards the next in a way where the lines don't break into one another or conflict with one another. And you can see like a general direction of where these lines go towards. So understand that you have the primary line of action here, right? And all of the lines that run through the body follows that general line of action, okay? Follows that primary line of action. And we have the secondary line of action that's going through here. And again, we're seeing the same thing. All of these lines support that secondary line of action. So that's what we're going to have to keep in mind. But it's much more difficult to start off with like the complicated details of the body first by, just immediately drawing in the figure without taking into consideration the lines of action, okay? So if you consider like the lines of action that we initially had in our mind, that we drew out for ourselves, then we can draw in the structure and the overall lines for the body and have those lines follow those lines of action. And then we start to realize that the figures that we're creating is now starting to look a lot more fluid and dynamic.